No one's going to want to end up in the press because they got in trouble for doing something like this. So I genuinely think it was a slip up. Just in my opinion, I feel like it seems a bit unfair that someone would be guilty of this, but then at the same time, I get it, rules are rules. Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Okay, so I put out a poll, which I'm going to go through in a second, on my YouTube community tab a couple of days ago. And if you're not a subscriber, you wouldn't have seen the post. So to see any of my polls, any of my notifications, like my things that I put out, you've got to be subscribed to see it. So if you're not subscribed, if you click subscribe, you'll see it. If not, you won't. But I put out this poll, and this is all to do with an Olympian called Dame Laura Kenny. She's a champion cyclist, and she has been spoken to, shall we say, by the BBC because she was mixing up sponsorship deals with her work as a pundit on the BBC. And I kind of got looking into this, and there are so many twists and turns to it. I get that there are rules that I actually didn't realise, you know, and now that I know the rules, I'm like, okay, why did she even break those? Because she will have known what they are. But I also have got lots of things that you have all said. So if you left a comment, because I asked all of you for your opinions on this, I have got comments from those of you saying she was wrong, she was so wrong, she deserves to get told off, to people that are kind of a bit like me, where it's like, I don't really care, through to people that are like, no, it doesn't bother me, you do you. So I'm going to go through that, and I will also show you the results of that poll towards the end. So if you voted in that poll, and if you want to know what people think generally as a consensus, keep watching for that. Okay, so here's what happened. Dame Kenny, Laura Kenny, is a brand ambassador, I think for a few different brands, I think from memory, from what I've read. But the one in particular is Breitling, the watch brand. And what happened is, she is obviously an Olympian, champion cyclist, as I've mentioned, but she was presenting for the BBC as a pundit during the Paris Olympics. And apparently what she was doing is she was posting up Instagram posts during her time in the studio where she was wearing the watches and sort of referencing some of the fashion brands that she was partnering with. And this got her into trouble with the BBC. Now, the BBC, if you aren't in the UK, BBC is British Broadcasting Corporation. I'm sure you already know that. And it's paid for basically by all of us. We pay a TV licence each year that goes to the BBC. And it turns out that there are rules to do with not being able to wear things that have got visible branding on them, particularly if you are an ambassador of those brands. And also some things that I really disagree with, actually, is the BBC don't like it if you work with other brands, and they kind of, from what I've read, they will encourage you not to do any brand partnerships. But also if you do decide to sort of go against that, they encourage you to take a hugely discounted rate from those brands and to do that work for, you know, for not as much as commercially you might be worthy of, you know, in the commercial sense. Do you know why I think that's unfair? I think that, and a lot of you said this in the comments, which we're going to come on to, but I think that not everyone is paid fairly. Just because they're on the TV, it does not mean they're one of these people with like a huge big salary. It just doesn't mean that at all. I think that there is an assumption that whether you're on social media with a big following, whether you're on TV, there is an assumption that that work pays you a fortune. And just because you're on TV, it does not mean you've got any cash, or it does not mean that you're paid very highly. I think a lot of you have thought that I, out of YouTube, earn a fortune because of the subscribers that I've got. It really doesn't work that way. It's not how it works. On YouTube, I need a day job to keep my bills paid, put it that way. To anyone who's able to do YouTube or social media just on its own, well done you, but I'm not quite there, regardless of subscriber numbers. So when the BBC are telling people you can't work with other brands, or you can, but you've got to do it for a slashed price, I find this unfair, because that person might be working with a brand for a number of reasons. It could be because they need the financial support, they need the money. could also be just because they like the product. And do you know, it's like if you pick your favourite brand in the world, if you're watching this right now, think to yourself your favourite brand in the world. If that brand approached you and said, we want to pay you and give you products to wear, would you do it? And you're like, definitely I'd do it because you're my favourite brand in the world and I already am a customer of you. So it's like, it makes sense that you would want to go ahead with it. And I think also with Dame Laura Kenny, there is potentially in some circumstances an assumption with everyone actually, not just with her, but there is an assumption that when you work with a brand, you don't possibly love it. You're just doing it because you're paid. And again, this is a major misconception. There will be people out there, celebrities, whatever, that work with brands that they don't deeply love because it's cash. But I tell you what, I would imagine the vast, vast, vast majority of people work with brands that they genuinely love, because otherwise it shows. You can't, do you know what? It's impossible to show love for something that you don't love. So I do think this is a bit unfair. But again, as I go back to that first point, rules are rules. The BBC are very strict on this, it turns out, and she will have known that. So anyway, let's go on to a couple of quotes. Then I'm going to talk through what a lot of you have to say. And we're also going to talk about this, this poll. And just, I've got a few other things I want to add to this because I feel like there's a lot to be said. So it says here is a quote. On-air talent in any genre engaged by the BBC must not accept clothing or products free or at a considerably reduced cost in exchange for wearing or using them on air. So again, I'm kind of stuck in between the two on this. And on one hand, I'm like, they're the rules. Do I really want a product pushed on me indirectly or directly that I'm not interested in just because that person's getting paid for it? Is that fair on me as the viewer? But then on the other hand, I think, well, everyone needs to earn a living. And, you know, I'm not sure whether on TV she was literally like, hey, everyone, look at my watch, go and buy it. I doubt that. She was probably just wearing it. I know that in some of the social media posts that she put up during her time with the BBC that she was more openly pushing the brand. But again, could that just be a slip up, a mistake on her part where she's thinking, okay, I'm just posting something on my Instagram that's got nothing to do with the BBC. And she got that wrong. It goes on to say, nor should they appear on air wearing clothes or using products, goods or services which they have agreed or been contracted to promote or in which they have any financial interest. So before we move on to your comments, I just want to clarify for the millionth time what it is that she has been called out for here. So she basically posted photos on her social media during her time at the studios. She mentioned fashion brands in the content that she posted, and she wore a Breitling watch, and Breitling have her down as an ambassador. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what she's been caught up for. Right, let's get on to your comments. And you know something? I can see the results of the poll, and I am shocked. I'm really, really shocked by this because for any of, well, I'll come on to it in a second. Okay, so some of the comments that you've left. This is from the Safety Marshal PSF. We have a lot more issues in the world than what Olympians are wearing. They have worked hard, let them get their bag while they can. So I think when it comes down to that comment to do with letting them do what they want to do, again, I think when it comes to women especially, definitely women in football, they get paid, certainly in the UK, they get paid a pittance compared to what the men earn. And I even heard with the women's football team, the England team last year, I think they won the Euros, didn't they? I watched that, it was brilliant. I think as well that from memory, one of the players actually works as a pharmacist because she can't afford to support herself from what they earn from football. And I find it so unfair. I'm just like, what's that about? So if a brand wants to go and pay one of those girls, I know some of them work with Pandora, do I really care that they're wearing a Pandora bracelet? No, good for you. That's kind of my take on it anyway. The next one is from Sam, who said, I mean, didn't Louis Vuitton design a lot of the Olympic things? Didn't designers make some nations' costumes and uniforms? Doesn't Adidas make the boxing gloves they use? And one of the watch brands have their clocks at swimming events. I know Rolex have their clocks at Wimbledon. It's been commercial for ages. You're absolutely right, Sam. Absolutely right. And, you know, I've got a couple of things written down here. Fiona Bruce, who is a big presenter in the UK, I remember watching her on Newsnight a couple of years ago, and she had a Serpenti Bulgari bracelet on. There is also another presenter who presents the football. I forget her name. Pretty lady. I saw when I last watched it, she was wearing Vivienne Westwood earrings that were clearly visible as being Vivienne Westwood. So, I don't know, I don't get it. Louise Sophie, however, has said it was because she was being paid by us, the licence payers, on BBC at the time. You're absolutely right, and this is what I mean. Rules are rules. Marianne Squire has said, PSA, stop telling women what to wear. This applies to all women, sports stars included. Again, I agree. The next one is from Sin in the House, who has said the Olympics used to be amateur only. The same people upset by this are the same people upset that pro basketball, soccer, etc. now get to compete. The next one is from Erica Scotch, who has said, unfortunately, many athletes need these sponsorships in order to finance being in the Olympics. Many did sponsored social media posts, so what's the difference? I agree. This, to me, this feels unfair, even though I know there are rules. So I'm kind of, to be honest, it doesn't bother me, you know, that she did this, but that's just me. The next one is from Danny, who said, I'm a preschool teacher, and back in November of 2023, I bought the Dior pink Boston bag from the 2000s girly collection off a Japanese eBay shop. Initially, when wearing and using it out in public, I was worried about any criticism, but I've got an overwhelming amount of support, and many other teachers were happy for me as they know I've worked hard and I deserve it. As for an Olympic athlete wearing a designer brand, if it helps pay the bills and make them happy, that's what matters. People are going to project what makes them insecure. I agree. I'm going to do a couple more. Another one has said, Girl Nana, that's your username. If it helps pay their bills and isn't harming anyone, I'm fine with it. Again, and as I go back to the BBC, I have seen many times on the BBC presenters wearing recognisable designer pieces, not big brands. You know, I'm not saying someone reading the news has got a Chanel double C jumper on, but I'll watch it and I'll like, that bracelet's Bulgari. Those earrings, they're from De Beers, or sometimes you just recognise. So I do think that if you're going to put this rule in place, it needs to be watertight. Same goes with Wimbledon, as one of you said. I don't know whether it's BBC who cover Wimbledon, but Rolex, the football, all of those banners, those sponsorship banners across the side of the stadium. You know, where does it start and where does it end? This other one is really good. This is from Penny Lane Mitchell, who has said, it's a slippery slope. You allow someone to do a subtle or not so subtle advertisement, and quickly it becomes a distraction rather than the focus being on the games and the sport itself. I immediately think of NASCAR driving and all the advertisements all over the drivers' uniforms, the cars. They scream more loudly than the race itself. Let them do their advertising on commercials. This one, I agree with. This next one, BCTL3HW, has said, what if they just really like the product? I don't see why they can't wear it if they like it. Having said that, I'm not aware of this instance you're referring to, so you can't really comment. But if it really was promotional, then ick. I'd love to see a sports by luxury video, Sophie. Do you think Louis Vuitton was a good match for the Paris Olympics? Do you know, I'll be honest, I haven't actually watched the Olympics. I'm not really into sport in that way. I was very into the London Olympics because we got tickets to it, weirdly through Barclaycard, you know. I remember at the time I tapped my card in Pret-a-Manger to get my lunch. And I got this phone call on a Sunday claiming to be from Barclays. And they were like, when you did that, when you used the tap function, you got entered into a prize draw and you've won 2 overnight stays in London. We got tickets to the football and the hockey and access to the Olympic Park. And I didn't believe it. And the person on the phone actually was laughing, saying, I've called so many people today that don't believe it. So I hung up, phoned up the number on the back of the credit card, and they were like, literally, you've won this. Can you believe it? That was the last time I got really into the Olympics, but otherwise I'm not so into it. Rachel Lee, again, another really good one. You've said this is exhausting. What are they supposed to do? Show up naked? They have to wear something. Again, I get it. And if she wants to wear a watch, even if it's not Breitling, even if it's Casio, someone's going to recognise that that watch is Casio. Is that therefore a problem? Are you not allowed to wear a watch on screen? Where does it start? Where does it end? You know? I just agree. Orange Snowflake has said, I think it's completely fine. Lily Lilux has said, oh, we're going to start telling people what to wear, have them all in uniforms and problem solved. Again, agreed. Agreed. Sandra EX has said, so Nike allowed? ? Again, that's a brand that sponsors many sports stars and is all over the place. So what do? And then I'm just going to do a couple more. Kat Can has said, track and field competitors don't earn as much as other sports. Female athletes earn even less, so I don't mind. I agree. If you're not going to pay them well in the first place, what do you expect them to do? And if a brand goes to them, as I've said, if a brand approaches them and they love that brand, who doesn't love Breitling, you know? If that brand came to me and said, Sophie, can you be our ambassador and wear our stuff? I'd be like, yes, I love your stuff. And then finally, the final one I'm going to do, and I want to read this out just because there was quite an interesting conversation going on here. So Christine Kelly Rose has said, celebrities, yes, Olympians, no. So I think what you're saying is, I don't mind when celebrities wear stuff, but when it's Olympians, no, can you not? And someone has written back, LS Schultz has said, why on earth should you care what Olympians wear or promote? They have a right to make a living. The running and jumping itself does not pay the bills. And you've responded to say it was Sophie's poll and my opinion. And do you know what? On this, everyone is allowed their opinion. But here's the poll. Everyone, look. 54% of you, this is big, 54% of you have said, it doesn't bother me. If Olympians want to go and wear products that they've been sponsored to wear or been an ambassador of, it doesn't bother me. Also, a huge 41% of you said, I don't really care. And I think I'm somewhere in between, it doesn't bother me and I don't really care. If somebody's on screen and they've worked hard and they're working with a brand, I'm like, good for you. And you know what? If you love that brand and you're telling me it's great, I'm going to go and look at it. I'm going to check it out for sure. Only 5% of you said, yeah, it bothers me. They shouldn't be promoting it. They shouldn't be wearing it. 5%. I actually thought it was going to be the other way around. I thought most of you were going to be like, no, I've got a problem. Don't do it. But it's different. So in summary, rules are rules. I get it. The BBC has its rules and she should have followed the rules. I get it. But is this just a slip up? Personally, for me, let's say I was working for the BBC and I knew the rules. I naturally wouldn't go on air wearing an item I'm paid to wear and be flashing it off or be drawing attention to it. But do you know what? If I got up that morning, put on my jewellery, put on my watch, and it happened to be one that I was paid to wear and I hadn't even thought about it and I wasn't about to go on air and be like, hey everyone, go and buy this watch. And then I was going to put up something on my Instagram after that's got nothing to do with the BBC at all. Would I necessarily think about it? No, I probably wouldn't. I'd overlook it and then I'd be like, oh my God, I didn't even realise, you know? And that's what I'm assuming she's done because she is a really genuine person. From what I've read, she's really genuine and I don't think anyone would do that. No one's going to want to end up in the press because they got in trouble for doing something like this. So I genuinely think it was a slip up, but even if it wasn't, I think she should and others should be allowed to do this. I'm not talking about go on air with a big old logo on yourself, but if you go on with something as innocuous as a watch or a pair of earrings, or, you know, something toned down and you're not purposefully flashing it, what's the problem? That's what I think. But anyway, they're your comments and what you think. I loved reading what you had to say on this. Please continue the discussion below. If you've got any thoughts on this, please continue that. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.